Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday, the official podcast of Black Fawn Distribution, broadcasting live across the planet and retransmitted on all major streaming platforms. Tonight's program is brought to you in part by Wellington Brewery's Helles Lager, Deadly Grounds Coffee, Twisted Teas, and of course Canada's #1 genre film company, Black Fawn Distribution. You wanted the best? Well, they didn't make it, so here's what you get.
It's really not that bad.
You weren't going to hell.
Here's your host, Benner from Black Fawn Distro.
Okay, welcome back to the program, everyone. I'm your host, Benner, just like the intro said, and this is another edition of Takeover Tuesday. Look, we've got a massive episode because we took an extra week off because we had to do the Hot Stove from Hell, which was our special panel edition of the show, which we focused on the Scream franchise. If you'd like to check it out on YouTube. Look, we're broadcasting live to Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube, and obviously retransmitting to all the major streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or wherever you pick up your favorite podcasts. I've got my guest, Carolyn Morset, in the green room. She's giving me the thumbs up. She's ready to go. And of course, please remember to like, follow, share, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on. Of course, we really appreciate the support. It not only helps out the show, of course, but it also throws some light onto our guests and the cool projects that they're working on as well. So please make sure you do that. If you want to go the extra mile, if you're on Apple Podcasts, if you want to write a review of the show, we would really appreciate that. Of course, that helps, tell the algorithm who else you want to listen to the program, and hopefully we can reach some more horror fans around the world. Quick shout out to our sponsors, of course, Wellington Brewery's Helles Lager, Deadly Grounds Coffee, and Twisted Teas. Of course, we couldn't do the show without them. They've been huge supporters of us over the years, both for Black Fawn Distro as well as the program. So we do appreciate their support as well. And look, hey, we've got a great program for you tonight, as we've got film festival programmer and friend of the show, Carolyn Morset, here with us tonight in the Takeover Tuesday studio. We're going to have talking all kinds of stuff tonight about film festivals, film festival submissions. Of course, we're going to be talking about Carolyn's love of cinema and all the other projects that she has going on right now. So she has a ton of stuff and a ton of knowledge, and she's very, very humble. But I'm going to give her the intro to end all intros when we get there. But before we do, you guys know the drill. We got to hit the news.
Top story. Top story. We'll give you the world. We'll give you the world. This may be the most important decision of your life. Can't stand the heat. Stay out of the kitchen. Any special message for all the kids watching at home? You can't stand the heat. Stay out of the kitchen.
Top story.
And remember, we care. We care. There are certain inherent risks that come with the territory. Top story. Top story.
Top story.
Okay, welcome back to the news. Of course, I've got my jacket on, I've got my purple tie, and of course, my Black Fawn Distribution or Black Fawn Distro news toque on. I have to wear that because that's how you can tell me apart from the regular Benner that's on for the rest of the program. But listen, let's talk about our top story. Goodness. Look, we couldn't not lead with this, unfortunately, but it was the slap heard around the world. And I'm talking about, of course, the dust up between Chris Rock and Will Smith at this year's Oscars. I don't need to talk about this for very long. We're going to make it quick. Everything that's been said about this has been kind of said about it online. But however, listen, it's already overshadowed one broadcast completely, and I don't want it overshadowing this one as well. So look, it's a pretty big stain on the Oscars. I was going to wear my tux actually on this segment of the news, but I didn't feel that this version of the Oscars warranted that. But it's just really unfortunate for everyone involved. And hopefully it's something that the Academy can address and people can address, and we don't ever see something like this happen again, because it's just not good for anyone, and it's not good for cinema, and it's not good for the industry. And you know, that's that. So listen, possible hot stove from hell topic later on. I don't know. We'll have to see. But look, here's a good idea if you want people to tune into the Oscars. If you're looking for better ratings, maybe add a horror or thriller category. You'd also get a lot of people from that all important 18 to 49 demographic probably tuning into that as well. And there's a lot of opportunity to kind of reach out to other genres. And that would be my recommendation. But hey, what do I know? I'm just some dude on the internet. What I do know is that this is called a neuralizer. It's a gift from some of our friends from around of town. And the red eye, as you can see, like there, will isolate the electronic impulses in your brain, more specifically the ones from memory. And the answers you're looking for are right in there. Okay, and that bright light that you saw just on your computer screen was the heavenly, ungodly feeling in your brain of Shockstock. That's right. Shockstock is returning to London, Ontario on April 29th and May 1st. Just want to give this a shout out as well. I know we did it on the last regular episode of Takeover Tuesday, but listen, shout out to Jake and James. This is their 10th year, their 10th incarnation of the event. And, it was postponed in 2020. It was postponed in 2021. It's back. We couldn't be more excited. And we know more than anyone how much work and effort and dedication it takes to put on an event like this. It can be really challenging and it can be really draining. And so props to these guys for coming back. Shockstock lives at the wonderful Ramada Hotel in London, Ontario, April 29th to May 1st. And of course, Black Fawn Distribution will be there as well with the Black Fawn Bar. So swing by and let's shoot the shit. And we can't wait to see everyone at Shockstock. Just a quick word. Like I mentioned before, we do have our hot stove from hell episodes. They're going to start. We're going to do them once a month. I'm going to throw up this trendy new graphic. I don't know if anyone saw it on YouTube, but here it is. It's me, way more giant than ever, and then all of my guests, of course. But we just did a hot stove from hell episode on Scream. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube. Check it out if you can. Really appreciate the support. And of course, we've got another episode. We're going to try and do them once a month. So we're looking at probably, let's say, April. And our next episode is going to be revolving around the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, one of my personal favorites, probably my all-time favorite horror movie. And we're going to get into that one as well as the remake and maybe some of the other sequels. So tune in for that. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a Takeover Tuesday edition if we didn't do the Black Fawn Distro Fried Chicken Sandwich Report. That's right. I went out to try a fried chicken sandwich. I go out and try one and then tell you how good it is. And this is the sandwich. Where's my finger? Right there. This is the sandwich I went out and tried. It's the KFC Kentucky Scorcher sandwich. This is what I thought I was going to get. And, this is what we got. This sandwich. And I got to tell you, I've never been so disappointed in a fried chicken sandwich in my entire life. I cannot give this a great rating. It's going to be a negative review. Overpriced, $8.99. It looks nothing like the picture. Let me just go back to that picture for a second. Look at that thing. That looks delicious. And no, it's no good. I had a falling down moment at home. I couldn't believe it. It's bland tasting. It doesn't really have any spice to it. It's not hot at all. And it's called a KFC Kentucky Scorcher sandwich. I don't think so. I also went online to give them the benefit of the doubt. I thought maybe I just got a dud sandwich. Maybe someone forgot the sauce or whatever. It's universally hated fried chicken sandwich, KFC. It's even worse than the Tim Hortons sandwich. That's how bad this is. It's a 1 out of 5. It doesn't even make our list. It's a 1 out of 5. So I was so disappointed. And based on a recommendation from a friend of mine who told me, listen, why don't you go out and try one of the plant-based chicken sandwiches? So just for any of the vegetarians out there, they might want to hear a review for that. So big shout out to Jason Rockman, who told me about this. I went out and tried the Pizza plant-based chicken sandwich. And listen, I was pleasantly surprised. A 3 out of 5. That's what the sandwich gets. It gets way more than the KFC sandwich. KFC letting me down, not a leader in the fried chicken field anymore. But this pizza sandwich, pretty good. Not bad. It's a 3 out of 5. I haven't added it to our list yet because it's not necessarily a real chicken sandwich. But listen, if I had a vegetarian friend of mine, they were like, let's go grab a couple of these sandwiches instead of real fried chicken sandwiches, I wouldn't be necessarily disappointed. It was pretty good. Decent taste. I think the cutlet could be a bit bigger. But again, pizza coming through. Not too bad. So 2 reviews this week because we skipped one on our Hot Stove from Hell panel edition of Takeover Tuesday due to time constraints. But let's hit the standings. We've got Coco Chicken in Guelph, fried chicken sandwich number 1, tied with Royal Electric, as well as Tall Tree Sandwich Co. from Hamilton. That is essentially a 3-way tie there for first place. They all have 4.5 out of 5, and the rest of them, as you can see, going down the list. And of course, why the hell do we review fried chicken sandwiches on this show?
It just tastes so damn good.
All right, that's why. A nice little shout out to Captain Spaulding. We miss you, Sid. Thanks so much for all the laughs and all the awesome movies that you were in over time, over the last history of film, I guess. Quick shout out. We're gonna do some questions here. So if you've got some questions, comments for Carolyn, throw them down in the comment section below on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, wherever you're listening or wherever you're tuning in, and we'll get to them throughout the broadcast. But of course, our guest tonight is the awesome, amazing Carolyn Morset, who is one of my favorite people from the film festival circuit. She's fantastic, and you're going to meet her. You're going to know what I mean when you meet her in a couple minutes. She's an incredibly funny and humble person with a laundry list of accomplishments as both a film festival director and as a writer. And I promised her I'd give her the intro to end all intros. So here we go. Let's check the resume. Carolyn is currently the director of Canadian programming at the world-renowned Fantasia Film Festival, and also one of the many programmers that make up Toronto's Blood in the Snow Film Festival as well. In addition to her contributions to the Blood in the Snow programming team, Carolyn also acts as the festival's coordinator for the BITS Horror Development Lab, and we're going to discuss what that is coming up. She's also a respected lecturer in the horror community, frequently discussing a range of cinematic topics and films. She's a Rotten Tomatoes approved critic, frequent contributor to publications such as Rue Morgue Magazine, and is the founder of the blog View from the Dark. So let's take a quick look at one of the many organizations she works for, and just to give you a sense as to what she does, here are a couple of quick commercials from the Blood in the Snow Film Festival taken over the last couple of years. Of course, we've got Carolyn Morset in the house. We've got her live on the other side, and we'll get to chatting with her right after this.
Celebrate Canadian independent horror films with the Blood in the Snow Film Festival, October 28th to November 7th. Broadcast exclusively on Super Channel Fuse. You can watch all these chilling festival films and shorts as a virtual experience from the safety of your own home. To subscribe to Super Channel, contact your television service provider directly or via Amazon Channels or Apple TV+. For more info, go to superchannel.ca/subscribe. The Blood in the Snow Film Festival, proudly sponsored by Super Channel.
Okay, and I think we're back here. You know what? I just forgot to take that off. There we go. Welcome back to the program. And my guest in studio, Carolyn Morset. Carolyn, I am so happy that you're here. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. So I'm going to have a lot of fun. This is exciting.
I remember talking to you. I'm sure you won't mind me sharing this, but I said, you should come on the program. We can talk about some stuff. And you said, I don't know. I mean, are you sure? Like, I'm kind of boring. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, you are literally one of my favorite people I see at BITS every year. You're funnier than you let on. And I will say this, if people don't get the vibe by the end of the program, that you're one of those people that sort of like changes the mood in a room, for the better, then, I'll eat another KFC, Kentucky Scorcher sandwich. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
But listen, thanks everyone for tuning in. We've got a great audience tonight, and of course, don't forget to ask if you've got comments or a question for Carolyn. Please leave it in the comment section below. We will try and get to them throughout the broadcast. We've got a couple coming in right now, so we'll wait to get to those a little bit. Well, we'll throw one up, of course. Friends of the show, Spin Scissors Horror, Carolyn. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. But it's but let's get to it. I always like to start with kind of how people got into cinema, how they got into film, or how they got into movies, or whatever you want to call them. I know there's there's different lingo, of course, but what kind of got you into film to begin with? Like, was there sort of a moment where you remember you're like, I really, really love this. This is one of my favorite things, and I'm diving in.
Well, I mean, a lot of people say that they get the love of like film, and like for me specifically horror is from my mom. Because she used to watch Dark Shadows, that soap opera from the 70s. And she actually named me after a character on the show. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So she named me after Carolyn on the show, Carolyn Stoddard, actually. So, yeah, my mom was a diehard like horror fan, and she liked all the stories from the old country. And then just as a kid growing up, like Saturday afternoon, watching like Godzilla films, that sort of thing. And I love creature features and like Ray Harryhausen, Sinbad, and all those like stop motion, like monster movies. And then I became, I did a few things. Like I did like, just like regular jobs kind of thing. Then I became a makeup artist. And then that's when, and I did that for like 15 years. And then I started to like look at film like from the other side, like I did a couple of short films, did makeup for a couple of short films, and seeing what happens, and then like the, behind the scenes. So that really fascinated me. And then I just watch a lot of horror. So I figured I had like just some bad stuff happen to me. So I had to take some time out and started writing and started my first blog. And then I started going to film festivals, and then just kind of built from there. So yeah, kind of like a meandering road to where I am now.
Yeah. And you started up, you had your blog, View from the Dark. When did you start that up? So is that kind of how you first sort of started, like really kind of not just being a movie watcher, but a movie reviewer or someone that was just a little bit more in touch connected to the film world that was kind of operating around you?
Yeah, well, that's my grown-up website. So I had another one, and it was just me dappling and like finding my writing voice, and writing about like Horror Express, kind of cheesy horror films that we all love, or just really obscure weird stuff. And then I just decided to create View from the Dark, because at that point I can't remember when I started. I can't remember when I started it. I think it was like 2019. So I just kind of moved to that, because I wasn't doing that sort of writing anymore. I was actually looking into like themes and character development, and not so much like, oh, this film wasn't that great, or, I was delving deeper into film. And I felt like my first website wasn't really serving that. It was kind of like just for fun. Right. And then this time around, I started to get, really into film, and actually being asked to review films, or, getting on like PR lists, and getting screeners here and there. And also a friend of mine, he runs his own website, Cinema Access, Courtney Small, and he had asked me to write a few reviews for him. And I started to get like the bug for kind of delving into film in a different way. Right. So yeah. So kind of, I guess I grew up writing about film.
Right. And then that obviously sort of, I don't know how one led to the other. I really don't actually know this. So this is a personal question as well as a question for our audience. But how did you jump from that into doing programming for film festivals? Because you started out with Blood in the Snow Film Festival. You've been with them, working with their programming team for the last 7 years. And I think that's an interesting story, how you got involved with that too, which I do know about. But and now you've also, you're still working for them. You're still contributing to that film festival, which is, a great, fantastic film festival. It focuses on Canadian films and almost exclusively. But now you're also programming for Fantasia as well, which is a massive, crazy festival that is, world renowned for being one of the best genre film festivals in the world. So how did you go from reviewing to and you still review, of course. I guess
Yeah.
you weren't busy enough, right? So, but now you're like, how did you go from there into working with Bits, which is, for those listening, the short form for Blood in the Snow, and working with Kelly and the team over there to program their lineups?
Well, I was just covering the film festival, and Kelly basically asked me, and I actually said that I didn't like a couple of films just because I just didn't like, there were a few problematic things that I thought, needed addressing. And I'm not the type of person to be like front and center. So a lot of the times being like, not that I feel singled out or anything, but like, I'm not very good as the center of attention. So, and I thought, I didn't think anybody read my blog really, maybe a couple of friends, my sister occasionally. So, when Kelly contacted me, he's like, yeah, thank you for covering the film festival. And, I really like your insight, and would you like to join our team? And I was like, what? I was like, are you sure you're calling the right person? So I'm like, did you get the right number? So, and I was like shocked and like thrilled, because I was telling, was it you I was telling, or I can't remember, my memory's so bad, but just talking to someone, it must've been you, just like the community at Blood in the Snow, just as a festival goer, everyone was so nice. And like, everybody talked to each other, people in the lineup, we were talking about films, and I went by myself too. Because not a lot of my friends liked horror. My sister, often her work schedule didn't work out. So I just went by myself. And it was really nice to find such a welcoming crew, and it just left an impression on me. So when I was asked, I was like, oh my God, like these people are so nice. And actually, I remember one of the film festivals that I went to just as a festival goer for Bits, Melanie Turner, she's one of the programmers. She's so lovely. And she asked me, she's like, come with us and we'll have a drink. And I'm like, really? Like, everybody's so nice. And I went for a drink with everybody, and it just left really such a nice impression, that when Kelly asked me, I was first of all shocked, but then I'm like, yeah, these are a good group. So I was really thrilled to join the team. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess your experience with them is different than mine, but no, yeah. I'm just kidding. No, they're you know what? It's kind of like it's like when you live in a small town and you go to a bar, and you can go to a bar by yourself because you're going to see 2 or 3 other people there that you'll be friends with anyway, and it really does have this community aspect to it and this vibe. Yeah. And again, of course, the last couple of years have been tough for anybody organizing any sort of event, like I was mentioning with the Shock Stock crew. And, it can get a bit demoralizing when you can't move forward. Right. And nothing you can do can make time, advance any faster than it already is, or certain problems that are out of your control. So, I'm looking really, really forward to going back this year, because I have missed sort of like that community aspect. The whole team has been, for the most part as well, pretty consistent. Like they've obviously expanded, right? And but ultimately, like, people have been there, like yourself, for years, and you've brought kind of new people into the fold as far as the programming team. And how has that been as an experience, as far as like seeing that sort of grow, outwards?
It's really awesome, actually, because Kelly Michael Stewart, who's the festival director, he works so hard to keep that festival on track, and and also to grow, because sometimes I think the core team, we all know what we're doing, but then to kind of provide opportunities for new people to come in and like fresh perspectives and that sort of thing. So I think it's a great thing that we have a couple of new programmers, and also we're doing a development lab as well for horror. So I don't know if I'm jumping ahead.
No. Let's talk about that, because I think that's a super interesting event. I've been lucky enough to be part of the roundtables for Deadly Exposure. Yes, Deadly Exposure. And it's been super rewarding experience to talk to young filmmakers and just different people that you wouldn't like. It's always better when it's like kind of face to face. And even last year when we did the Zoom thing, it was just cool to see, because people pop up that, and then you meet a lot of people you don't. But yeah, talk to us about the Horror Development Lab and what that's all about, because that's a relatively new aspect for BITS, right?
Yeah, so we had the first Horror Development Lab last year, and it was obviously online because of, the festival was hybrid. It was on Super Channel, and then we were lucky enough to have it in theater as well last year. But the Horror Lab is basically to get underrepresented filmmakers, so BIPOC, LGBTQ, plus anyone living with a disability, women filmmakers, people who don't get into the room, I guess, or have access to industry insiders and industry professionals. So they have a short film, and then they basically get feedback on a project that they want to expand into a feature film. So, and that our first year was really great. We had a lot of great people that were selected, participants, and we had a lot of people actually apply. I think there's like 56 for the first year. So, and it's all across Canada. We're really looking forward to this year. And the Horror Lab submissions are open. It's on Film Freeway along with the regular festival. So if anybody out there is an underrepresented filmmaker, Canadian, and you want to be a part of the lab, please submit. And all the information's on Film Freeway. So.
Awesome. And of course, any aspiring filmmakers out there, or if you're not on Film Freeway, I can't recommend it enough. We're not sponsored by Film Freeway, just for anyone listening. I'm just saying it's a great resource. It's a great way to kind of, load up all your film and your content, and then submit fairly easily. Again, check out Blood in the Snow, and as well, Fantasia is on there also. I know, and like you mentioned, and we'll get into this a little bit later on, but just sort of having those opportunities, I think that's something that's really come to the forefront for filmmakers. Not necessarily, there's a, I don't want to say it's a controversial debate, depends who you're talking to, right? But I do feel like personally, and I know that I can speak for the rest of the guys on this, is that just kind of like a level playing field, right? Like, here's some opportunities to kind of get in and get an idea in there. From myself, sure, I can support that, but even as a film fan, and this, for anyone curious, is that I'm just interested in seeing what horror looks like through different lenses, and whether that's Black filmmakers, women filmmakers, LGBTQ filmmakers, whatever. I don't think it matters. Is it interesting? What stories there? And my hope is that, and I would assume this would be correct, is that the stories are different than anything else I've seen, because I've been watching a certain variety of horror for so long, right? Do you think that's a fair assessment, or am I way off base?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of untold stories and untapped stories. There's a lot of like cultural folklore that would really jump off the screen if, given the chance. And a lot of the times, like, it's not for, like, for instance, so I also do a podcast with one of my friend of mine, Ashley Blackwell, and we talk about Black film and Black filmmakers, or, just films about representation, right? And we just talked about that film Master by Mariama Diallo. I believe it's on Amazon Prime now. And that is a very unique perspective. That's about a Black woman in the world of academia. So that's a very specific perspective that not everybody is going to perhaps understand, but it also needs to be like a moment under the sun, so to speak, because there are a lot of perspectives that aren't showcased. And I think that's one of the reasons why we really wanted to do the lab. And also just seeing like people of color in horror, like, there's a ton of Indigenous horror films. there, you know, there's a ton of like, obviously Asian film is, it's, you know, that's been a long-standing genre,
Yeah, absolutely.
a subgenre of horror. So, you know, there's room for everybody. It's just that they need to kind of a little bit of a push, because a lot of the times people are still asking, oh, you know, Black people like horror, or like, I heard this the other day and I'm like, what? You know? So like, it's just
like where does that come from? Like,
it just, there's like these assumptions. And coming from a money making side, we already see that it does make money, and there's a need for it. So, you know, I really want to be a part of facilitating that, because there's a lot of people out there that I'm rooting for. And, you know, sometimes you don't think you have the power, but now that we're doing this program, I just really want to, you know, I want to see these stories up on the screen someday. So.
And yeah, and there was a time like years ago when Hollywood discovered how rich like Asian horror was from Japan and other places, and they were like, oh my goodness, like look at this treasure trove of like great stories, really scary content. And then they remade all those movies. Like they couldn't make them fast enough after The Ring, right? So which is, you know, a personal favorite of mine. I love that film. But yeah, I mean, I just it's funny because I know something that's and I always tie this together, and again, maybe I don't know how you feel about this, but there's this continuing conversation just on big Hollywood blockbusters in general, where everything's a remake or everything's a sequel, or everything's a requel or whatever. We talked about this on the Scream Hot Stove that we did. And it's just funny because when I just recently watched the trailer for Nope, which is the new Jordan Peele movie that's coming out.
Yeah.
More of a thriller than a straight horror, I think. I think it's aliens. I don't know. But like just the fact that I watched that trailer and I was like, I have no idea what's going to happen in that film. And that's exciting for me because I just like going to a movie now and being like, I don't really know what's going to happen in the second act or third act. Like, I don't know how this is going to end. And I don't know. I feel that is a way for both film fans to kind of get these new experiences, as well as filmmakers making new experiences, and sort of like there's an audience already waiting for those films, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You're making me think of that TV show Raised by Wolves. Do you watch that show?
So there's a long story behind that, but yes, I've seen the first two episodes. I've seen the first two episodes, and I did really like the first two episodes.
Like that's insane. Like that show is like, you do not know what to expect.
Yeah,
absolutely do not. Like, it's like, what? You know, like I had to call my sister into the room one day who was watching. I'm like, you've got to see this. This is like totally insane. But like, so that has a lot of representation too. And it's like, you know, like I did a talk on Afrofuturism, and the reason why it exists is because a lot of sci-fi films, a lot of films set in the future, they don't include people of color for the most part. So it's very rare. Like I think, oh my gosh, what's that? THX 1138. I think that's what it is. There's like a few, like there's maybe one or two Black characters. But like, I think it's really important to envision. There's a new movie called After Yang with Jodie Turner-Smith. She's married to Joshua Jackson. And she's like just this incredible, she's done a lot of sci-fi. She's a Black actress, and she's done a lot of sci-fi and stuff. And so her and Colin Farrell, and they adopt an Asian daughter. And like, it's just a very, it's like a natural film, like a film set in the future, including nature. And it just seemed like, so I guess the word is natural, that, you know, there's this people from different races, like everybody's melding. And that's what the future should look like, right? So anyway, I'm rambling.
No. I mean, it's funny too, because I feel like that can date you as a film fan too. When like I always say, look, I remember a world without the internet. Like I remember that world. I was young, not that young, but I do remember that world. And it's funny, like talking about representation in film. like, you know, I remember a time where like you'd never see like a fictional black president in movies. Like it'd always be some old white guy, which, you know, which I get because, you know, like there's a history there, obviously, that they're trying to replicate for the film. But then you kind of saw that change in I think it was the 90s, like Morgan Freeman in Deep Impact. And I remember that was like kind of a thing. Like it wasn't like a big giant news story, but it was still a news story. They were like, how does it feel like? And I always felt like as a kid, I was like, well, yeah, like obviously that's going to happen. I mean, Obama hadn't been elected yet. Right. So, but as a kid, I was like, well, obviously that's going to happen like one day. Right. Like, I mean, it can't not. Right. So I think that's kind of telling, like just seeing like, what will our society look like in, you know, 20 years from now. And, you know, I think a lot of things we'll look back on like, remember when there wasn't this, and now it's everywhere. Right. And I think like, and again, it's sort of like when I watched Get Out, I was pretty interested in that movie because I was like, obviously there's jokes about me in that movie, right? Like about white dudes in that movie. And I was like, that's clever. And it's not just like, I find, and not to obviously focus on Jordan Peele too much, but just, you know, the fact that I find that his commentary is funny and clever and it's not cheap. And I feel it's like there's also lots of little horror hints in there from like past horror movies because he's a huge horror buff, right? But I find that an enjoyable experience to watch those flicks and just kind of, you know, pick them apart in a fun way to say, oh, that's that and that's that and that's funny, and that's not something you necessarily get from, let's say, the classics, right? Not that there's anything wrong with the classics; they're called classics. That's why they're called classics. But new classics, I guess, is I think we'll look back on those movies fondly, probably in 20 years.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep.
So let's pivot just a second because we're going to come back to this topic as well. Did you jump ahead? Kinda, but that's okay. But I wanted to take a step back because I do feel like this is important, huge news. And we've got a couple of comments about this as well off my opening topic. But Spincers of Horror say Fantasia, like as if they didn't know. So clap, 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 clap. Of course, we've got our friend of the program. Just off the top, Andrea from Rue Morgue. Andrea. And can you say Andrea's full name?
Subasati.
Yeah, Andrea Subasati. It's like that's like the funnest name to say.
Yeah, I know. I love it. It's got a nice rhythm to it. Yeah.
And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't post any comments about the, you know, the fried chicken sandwich report. Of course, finally a plant-based fried chicken sandwich. Been waiting for this one. So anyway, not to get too off topic, but I did want to take a step back, just talk about Fantasia and like how you're involved in 2 film festivals. Because I remember reaching out to you and I said, okay, so wait, like, so you're doing Fantasia now. Like, are you still doing Blood in the Snow? And you're like, yeah, I'm doing both. And I was like, like, you don't think I could do both? I was like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just like, I just wanted to make sure. But how did you go from one film festival and get involved with Fantasia? Because that's you're starting to compile, like, you're like almost like one of the go-to people now. You're everywhere.
I'm scratching my head still about that. But I did a couple lectures for Fantasia. Mitch Davis, who's the artistic director for Fantasia, I think it was Andrea that passed my name on. So he needed a lecture because obviously the pandemic was happening and Fantasia went online. And I guess obviously they needed some lectures. So he asked me to do a lecture. So I expanded. I had done one for the Black Museum in 2019, actually, just before things had shut down. So I did a lecture on the Omega Man, the Charlton Heston, Rosalind Cash film. So I expand because it's about Afrofuturism. So I expanded that and I did a lecture for them in 2020. And then he asked me to do it again last year. And I'm like, oh, sure. So I whipped something together and then he asked me if I wanted to join the team. And I was really shocked, but I guess he just liked my perspective and and he's such a lovely person. Like, he's just so sweet.
Mitch is awesome.
So lovely. Yeah. And I'm like, and like, it's a bigger festival. It's like, there's a lot of moving parts and I'm still, you know, getting my sea legs with it. But it's, you know, everybody's so great. Like, the people that I've met so far are really lovely. And yeah, it's really exciting because I get to, you know, compile and curate a Canadian program, a Canadian section. So, because they've got obviously the Asian section, like they've got the underground, and there's also like the animation side. I think there's like a couple of offshoots of animation. So there's also children's Fantasia, My First Fantasia. So pardon me, there's like a bunch of different offshoots. So I get to focus on like Canadian stuff. And I'm such I just love Canadian film. It sounds really weird, but like for instance, Black Fawn, I have so many Black Fawn DVDs on my shelf, like you wouldn't believe.
Well, we're gonna soundbite this for sure.
Yeah, well, I have so many. And you're playing the clip. I'm like, I have that one, I have that one, I have that one. And you know, like one of my favorite Canadian films is Bite. Like I love that film. It's so gross. And it's just, and it's got a really interesting message. So I don't know. I grew up watching Canadiana stuff, like, you know, watching TVO and CBC and yeah, I don't know. It's just, I guess it's in my bones that I just love Canadian films so much. So I'm really honored to do that for Fantasia, to curate this section. I'm really excited. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we appreciate the kind words for sure. And you have always been kind to us. So I am contractually obligated to say that. But also like, I forgot to, I guess I should add podcaster to your list of titles on your resume. I had forgotten to do that. So I do apologize. But again, like, I mean, I think, you know, with Fantasia as well, and speaking of Mitch, like, I've met Mitch a handful of times, and I'm always impressed with how into the films he is that he's putting on. Like you said, it's a massive festival, lots of moving parts. He's genuinely interested, and this isn't saying that like other people who love film aren't like this, but I find myself having a little less energy as I get older. And I think that he is the complete opposite. I think he gets more energy as he gets older. But he's always like right in the zone. Like he's I know, and I think that's reflective of the festival he has up there from a Canadian component too. I will say this. I'm kind of the same, sort of the same way where, like I've talked to other people from outside of Canada who really love Canadian film because they think it's got a vibe to it that's different from the US and different than other places. But again, you know, it's we look at it and I think we make that US comparison pretty quickly because it's the same language, the same geographical location, basically. A lot of it's shot in Canada or in the States or whatever. But you can kind of differentiate that between, you know, that and, you know, let's say Asian cinema or French cinema or whatever, a little bit easier. But I think people in Europe are like, or you know, outside of Canada are just like, yeah, I love Canadian cinema. It's got that thing to it that's different. And I'm always like, what thing? Like, but I always think we're too close to it, right? Like we don't see it. But would you have, you know, would you say there are there factors or characteristics that separate Canadian film from other films off the top? Not to put you on the spot. I'm just curious though.
I don't know. I think it's just a vibe. I don't know. Like, it's weird because I'll be watching, you know, say, okay, like in the old days, I would be channel surfing and I'll put it like a movie will come on and be like, that's a Canadian film. And it's weird. I don't know if it's the way the light is here, like the way our atmosphere is here. I don't know what it is, but you can tell. And I think it's just the way, I don't know if it's like the perspective or like the actual filming techniques. I'm not sure what it is, but you can always get that Canadian vibe. And now that we have so many recognizable Canadian talent, you know, you always, like, if you see like a Tatiana Maslany, you might, oh, okay, well, this movie might be Canadian, or, you know, like what film did I watched Destroyer, that Nicole Kidman film where she's like this alcoholic cop. Tatiana Maslany was in that. I was like, oh my God, and like, it's also kind of like find the Canadian now in films. So I don't know. It's like, I think it's really cool because we kind of like crossed over. We've kind of seeped into that, US market where we have like directors and actors who are sought after now instead of like, oh, are you from Canada? So I think the tide's turning as well. But yeah, I think it's just a vibe. I think it's a vibe. I don't know. That's not. I think that Canadians have a way of telling stories as well that I think they can get in depth. They can kind of find those layers of the story. And yeah, I guess, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I grew up here and I've been infused with with the Canadian vibe, but you can just tell. I don't know.
Okay, so yeah, and that's interesting too, because I do feel, I mean, I think some of it is that the more productions are coming up here. I mean, Toronto at least and Vancouver has always kind of being like hotspots for film productions, like even US film productions. And I remember that when I used to watch the X-Files, right? When X-Files was kind of shot in and around Vancouver area all the time, doubling up for, wherever USA,
Seattle,
Seattle, always.
Washington,
but and it's not, and I think that's obviously just exploded. And I think we're going to see more of it because from what I understand from the industry was that was all going to explode in like 2019, before everything kind of went to shit. Where Netflix and CBS and a bunch of other companies were sort of setting up shop in Toronto or on the outskirts of Toronto because they knew how much talent was there, how many people, how many locations, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens in like maybe this year, 2023 and onwards. Before we move off this topic, Carolyn, I just wondered if you could give any advice to filmmakers, either first-time filmmakers or younger filmmaking teams looking to submit their projects and their films to either Fantasia or Blood in the Snow. I don't know if there's just some general advice that you could give them.
Actually, I was just on a panel a couple of weeks ago with some other programmers. I think one was from Switzerland, and I can't remember where the other one was from. Anyway, I think it was the States. But we were talking about just knowing the festival that you are submitting to. Maybe just have a look at the films that festival has programmed to get a vibe of what they're looking for. Go to the Film Freeway page. Go to the website of the film festival and just read up on it, like do a little research before you submit, because a lot of times people submit films that are just not appropriate for a genre film festival, so, and you can tell they're just kind of like, oh, I'm just going to apply this. I'm going to send this. I'm going to submit. And it's just like they're casting this wide net and it costs money to submit. So, save yourself some dollars and do a little research. And also make sure that you have proper sound. I'm sorry, I'm almost griping about this. This is one of my major pet peeves. It's like you've got a nice looking product, you got a nice looking short film or whatever, and then you can't hear the dialogue, or the scoring's too loud over the dialogue, or there's just something. So maybe just like get a few opinions on your film overall, people you trust, right? Before you submit it. And short films should not be don't make a long short film. 15 minutes max, okay? I know.
We received a screener once for distribution, and it was someone that had made a 58-minute film. And I was just, I tried to give some feedback and stuff, but I was like, you're in such a tough, it was such a tough spot, because I was like, I know film festivals aren't really going to take anything. I mean, you're saying 15. I always thought it was 20, but even 20 you're pushing it, because you're getting into, that's like half-hour TV.
Well, yeah. And yeah, it is. Mind you, say there is I don't know, an hour and 10-minute feature film. And then we have a slightly longer short. maybe they're a match made in heaven. Maybe they kind of mesh, with the theme or what have you. So there are times when that happens, but not all the time. Like, it's rare. So yeah, just pay attention to your technical aspects of the film, as well as the length, again, the sound, your editing. It takes a lot to figure out how to pace a film, and I would never want to do it. Sorry. That does not look easy, So I totally get it. And this is, like I said this before, this is your product. This is your baby. It's representing you. So just make sure that you submit the best thing possible, and then if you're rejected, don't give up. That's another thing. Like, if you get rejected from a film festival, it's not that your film is garbage. It's not that you don't have talent. It's just perhaps, again, the length, or it just doesn't fit thematically with what the festival's trying to do. So that's another thing. Yeah, so don't give up. Like, this, it's really hard out there, and you just got to persevere and check out a lot of, like, wherever you live, there's might be funding to help you get your film made. Look into, like, different organizations as well to promote your film and to get your film made,
And would you say, like, because you're a reviewer as well, like, what's the benefit to, like, let's say, younger filmmaking teams submitting something and hiring a publicist, and if they get in, is that something worthwhile doing? Like, I know Fantasia sort of has their own sort of built-in press apparatus, which is phenomenal. I've never been so impressed with organization from one, not even just a film festival, just a company, to be honest. They are absolutely phenomenal when to do that stuff. But just for other film festivals, I mean, is it worth hiring a publicist? Because that's not necessarily an expense that maybe filmmakers plan on having, but maybe it's not worthwhile. But what would your thoughts be on that?
I don't know. It really depends. Like, I don't know if that really, like, if you were doing, like, distribution, right? Because then I believe the distribution companies have publicists, if I'm not mistaken. At least some of them do. So if you end up playing a film festival, but I don't know, it's an extra expense. There are companies that will help you, that will give you feedback on your film, what film festivals would be best to submit to, that sort of thing. So there's that avenue as well. But I don't really know. I don't know. I think it would be an added expense. I mean, social media is huge now. So sometimes you could do it on your own by just promoting it. But make sure, too, when you submit your film, that you're not playing it anywhere else, because that will screw up your chances. Because usually a film festival will offer you, like, a premiere status, right? So, like, you don't want to screw that up.
Right. And premiere status, typically, your world premieres, your first one, you have crack at the can for that. But past that, it's usually separated by, countries and then potentially the provinces and states, just to give it that North American thing. Europe, it's mostly countries, I find, or more major cities sometimes. But now we did have a kind of a follow-up question. So just from, friends of the show, longtime listeners, longtime viewers, the OHFP, you were just kind of talking about this, but are there any red flags that would deter you from selecting certain films? I mean, I guess in addition to the obvious ones, like if it wasn't well made, or if it was like, hateful content, that sort of stuff, obviously those are non-starters, but anything past just like, how does your selection process, maybe that's a good question. If you have like 20 films and you need to pick 5, what goes into that? What's the secret?
It's just like, I people have told me I'm too nice, and I'm like, I don't like having to say no, but I mean, now that I'm older, no is quite easy, but in my own life. Will you do this thing? No.
Yeah, I'm busy.
Yeah, but I like it's so hard to. I don't think there's anything. I don't think there are any red flags aside from like technical or as the things you mentioned, Benner. But I don't think that there are any red flags. I think it's just a matter of fit. You know, it's just a matter of fit. Like if it fits well, or if you know, with bits, it's a collaborative thing. So, you know, we talk about it. We talk about how it fits. We'll talk about, you know, if it's a local film, you know that you know, cast will come and crew and you want to have like a nice turnout, right? I don't think that, yeah, I don't know. It really depends. It really depends on the fit. And I guess maybe the only red flag would be, but that's a technical thing, like just the quality of the film. If someone's going to be able to, like an audience member is going to be able to sit through it, you know? So yeah, I don't think really there are any red flags. I think it's just a matter of just the fit, what we're looking for. You know, like a comedic film, if the laughs don't fall, like if they fall flat, I don't know. Yeah, I think it just really, it just depends. And it could be like a really weird film, but like you totally fall in love with it and you don't know where it's going to fit, but you hope that you'll have a spot for it, you know?
Yeah.
So,
and it's funny, like, just speaking of the laughs and stuff, like our own experience with when we put out Vicious Fun, like we were lucky enough to screen it, like at Blood in the Snow, was the opening film at last year's festival. But also like the thing with that was that we had never seen it in the theater. So, you know, I thought it was funny. Obviously Cody and Chad made the film. They thought it was funny, everyone, but it's like, but you don't really know how it's going to connect. And even if it's online, like we did some online festivals, you know, it's online. Everyone says, yeah, it was a great turnout. You sold a lot of tickets. And like, did anybody laugh? Like, do we even know? So it was great to have it in a theater. Obviously it was at the Royal. It's hilarious too, because the biggest laugh in that movie is in a spot where I didn't necessarily think it would happen. And it's just a throwaway line of dialogue and the whole place went nuts. Right. So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting to, like, all I'm trying to say is that getting back to having film festivals in theaters with crowds and people that kind of vibe interacting off each other, that's a hard thing to measure when you're just watching screeners. Right. Do you like your own process, do you envision sort of like how the film will play, how you think audiences will react to it? Or
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Cause I mean, I don't know, I guess I have a weird sense of humor, but like if we get I'm not a huge fan of horror comedies, no, but there are some that I'm like, you know, they're just really funny. And you know, you've got it right. Like, you know, like with Vicious Fun, that was such a fun movie. And like, I was laughing, you know, and like when you see the screeners, and it's weird because, you know, you're watching them by yourself. So you're laughing at things. And like, I think, I can't remember what one, I think it was Puppet Killer. And I was watching it in my room. I was laughing really loud. It was just like, what the hell are you watching?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it's, you know, so yeah, sometimes it's just they just get it right. You just get it right. So, and you'll know because you're sitting there laughing or like, you know, you get this emotional response to the film and you know that they've just hit it and they've done it right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of emotional responses, I'm going to go to a couple of comments right now. Of course, you know, the only reason he's on here is to keep an eye on me. But yeah, our good friend Chad Archibald, owner of Black Fawn Distro, woohoo, Carolyn, and also an awesome comment from Tony Burgess. Great vibe here,
hi,
Tony. Yeah, I don't know if there's anyone who doesn't like Tony Burgess, but yes, dude, thank you for tuning in. That's awesome to have you on the program and listening and listen, let's keep that vibe going. We've got a couple more questions to ask you. We've also got our a couple more sections. You still got some time?
Oh yeah. I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. One more thing I have to add though is
Sure.
that for anybody that gets rejected from bits, I know Kelly takes his time to respond to people. So just FYI, and he will give you feedback. And he's really great about that. So
Yeah, that's a great point. And just anyone listening out there that you're thinking about, if you're dealing with any sort of film festival, this is just me tacking onto that as just a piece of advice as well, is that don't take it personally. If somebody's not getting back to you fast enough, it's a really tough job. There's tons of films being submitted. But also you can't look at that as like, oh, well, your film's not good enough or whatever. Like you were just saying, like, it depends on the vibe of the festival. It depends on, a few things. It depends if you're going into a beach store and asking for cowboy boots too, right? So you got to make sure it's like, going into a cowboy store, going into a cowboy boot store and asking for flip flops, I guess. But like, just make sure you're submitting your film to the. But again, like if you can get feedback from film festival programmers, get that in a respectful manner. And if you ask for it, you'll probably get it. And that might help not only just this film that you're currently pitching and promoting, it might help your next one. And that's always good info to have. And, for the most part, it's free. So you might as well grab it if you can. But I have seen examples, not anyone I know, but I have seen examples from submissions to film festival. People just lose their shit because they didn't get selected, which is not the right way of going about things. I'd like to think that the majority of people know that. But for those of you don't out there listening, don't do that. It's bad. It's the easiest way to get you blacklisted from a submission list. And speaking of the blacklist, I just wanted to let everyone know that we have Vicious Fun out. It's available now for pre-order through our online store, blackfawndistribution.com. And we also have our infamous blacklist packages. That's a good blacklist, in case you're wondering. Bad blacklist if you get blacklisted from a film festival, but good blacklist if you get on our blacklist, which is a cool, really pre-order package featuring Vicious Fun. It's available now through our online store, and you can pre-order it a la carte, or like I said, is part of our limited edition package. They're half sold out right now. We only have 100 of them, so make sure you get that. And if you are in the Southern Ontario area, and if you're coming to Shock Stock, then drop us a line. Let us know. We can probably hand deliver it to you there, and you can save on the shipping. So hit me up online or drop us a line at takeover@blackfawndistribution.com, and we will try and get you taken care of to the best of our ability. Now, just before we kind of jump into our next section, I wanted to follow up on something we were just talking, because you were like, I actually wasn't quite aware of this, but you're a lecturer as well for genre film. You've got an event coming up on April 12th through the Miskatonic Institute of Horror Studies. I have that right. I hope I hope I have that right, because if I don't, I'm pretty sure the Spinsters of Horror are gonna hit me. So, yeah, tell us about that. It's coming up on April 12th. It's going to be an online lecture. And what can you tell us about the event and the topics that you'll be covering?
Well, oh my God, it's just such a weird topic. So I believe it's going to be it's on Great Britain time. So I think it's around noon or 1. I can't remember the time, but it's on the website. And I think I have a link tree on my Instagram, so I have a link to that too as well. But it's basically it's called Nursing Grief, and it's about grief and how it manifests in Beloved and Hereditary. Now, you may ask yourself, what? But that movie is the two movies are very similar. It's very similar. And the way that the two main characters are controlled in their environments, very interesting as well. So yeah, that's all I'll say about it. But It's about grief and horror and women and losing your children, and how horror kind of is a cathartic space for that too, to experience grief or to explore grief. Yeah.
Okay. I've just thrown up Carolyn's Instagram on the ticker at the bottom of the screen. But if you're listening on the podcast, you can check out her Instagram. It's at CEMO25. So at CEMO25. She's got a link tree there in her description on her Instagram profile, and you can get the details for the lecture that's happening as part of the I knew I was going to do this. Miskatonic Institute for Horror Studies, taking place April 12th online. Now, listen, this is the part of the show where we got to do our rapid fire section. So I don't know if you didn't know about this. You should have watched a previous episode. But are you down to do this? It's 5 hard hitting journalistic questions, and we need direct answers. Are you good to go?
Sure, my brain doesn't work well lately, but that's okay.
Okay, well, this might be the best rapid fire ever. Rapid fire obviously is brought to us by Wellington Brewery's Helles Lager. They, of course, are one of our sponsors for our show. You can take advantage of Wellington's free local delivery in the Kitchener, Waterloo, and Guelph area, I believe, as well as visit their local brewery in Guelph. Or you can pick up some cans wherever your favorite adult beverages are sold. Of course, that includes the LCBO if you're in Ontario. Helles Lager. Helles, yeah. All right, let's go rapid fire. So you can't spend too long on these, but here we go. Are you ready?
Sure. My answer will be cats for everything.
No, I knew that.
Okay.
And we've got it built in. Okay, so rapid fire, yes or no. There's obviously a new Hellraiser incarnation coming out. It's going to be a female Pinhead. Are you stoked for that and pumped for that, or yes or no?
Yes. Totally stoked. I love that actor. I love her.
I'm really interested to see kind of what they do with that. Yeah. Like, I'm just so interested to see if that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. Like, what's that going to look like? It's something totally different than the Doug Bradley, Doug Bradley, what would you call it? Role, I guess. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Rapid fire. You got to pick one. So you got to pick one. You've been exiled to a desert island and you're only allowed to bring either books or movies. Not both, just one. Which format are you bringing with you?
Oh, it's not fair. All right, movies.
Okay.
Yeah, movies.
Okay. Rapid fire. Number 3, help us out. Can you share a favorite memory from a past film festival that really made you believe in the power of cinema?
Oh my God. I don't know. Okay. Well, okay. So this was before I worked for Blood in the Snow. Okay. So this is before I worked for Blood in the Snow. And I believe it was, they were screening Ejecta, right? So, and I actually got to meet Stephen McHattie.
Yeah. Canadian legend.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with Stephen because I saw him in Look What's Happened to Rosemary's Baby. Have you ever seen that movie? Oh my God, it's total camp. Yeah. And he's so handsome, and he plays Adrian, or like the Devil's Baby, grown up like a 20-year-old, and it's very camp. I have a bootleg copy of it actually because it's a made-for-TV movie. Anyway, so after I saw that movie, became completely obsessed with Stephen McHattie, and then Ejecta played at Blood in the Snow, and so I can't remember. Oh yes, I was leaving because I had to catch the train or something, and Stephen McHattie was outside. He was just out, like kind of wandering, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to talk to him. I have to talk to him. I have to talk to him. And so I went and I said hello, and he was so lovely, and it just kind of reinforced my love for, I guess, Canadian cinema and that sort of thing. Yeah. So that's my story.
Okay. That's great. No, that's awesome. Okay. So I came up with this question after we talked over the weekend because I felt it was perfect. And I will tell you, I will pipe in at the end and tell you mine, because you already know this, but everyone has names for their pets, but also they have secondary names for those same pets. Would you care to share the names of your pets and the secondary names with our audience?
Yes, absolutely. There are so many, and there probably will be more made up. So I have 2 cats, Callie and Finny. And Callie, we call her Callie Calster, or Callie Bing Bong, or Sasquatch, or Muffin Paws. And then...
Two totally different ends of the spectrum, eh?
Yeah. And then Finny, we call her Finny Finster, Funicula. What else do we call her? We call her the raccoon, because sometimes from the back, she looks like a baby raccoon because she's gray. She's a gray tabby, and she's got like these rings on her tail. And so you'll be like, at the corner of your eye, you're like, oh my God, there's a raccoon in my house, but it's Finny. And we'll call her actually, I saw like a YouTube video, and this woman befriended a groundhog, and it came home with her, and it lives in her backyard. And from the top, it looks like Finny. So now I call her the groundhog. And we call her, my boyfriend calls Finny like Inspector Gadget, because she's built like a tank. So she's like the size of a loaf of bread, built like a tank. She has these little short legs, but she can retract her legs and soar over anything. I don't even like, she's like an Inspector Gadget cat. So like long story short, my cats weren't getting along for a while. So I had to build a fence. I had like these snap together things. So I built a fence of my doorway in my bedroom, and they were like hissing at each other. And then Finny had enough, and she just went over the fence, and her legs retracted. So anyway, yeah, those are the names of my pets.
Spring-loaded legs.
Yes, I'm telling you.
I remember
strong.
I remember I showed somebody once, I said, a cat always lands on their feet, right? And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, I mean, if you drop a cat upside down, it'll flip over and land on its feet. And they didn't believe me. And I had to get up on a couch because I wasn't going to drop on the floor. Well, they'll be fine on the floor, but the last thing you need, right? So I did it on a couch, and I put it right over my this cat over my head, and I dropped him, and he flipped over and landed on his feet and ran off, and just mesmerized. But I did say I would tell you what mine are. I have two cats. They do have full names, by the way, but I'll just give you the regular names. The regular names are Henry and the Deuce. So Henry is a tabby cat, of course, and the Deuce is a black cat. But their their secondary names are Baby Boy, because Henry's a big suck, and he's like a giant baby. And the Deuce is called Mr. Pants. And it's just that's what his names are. I think it started because I think it looked like he's a kitten. He's only a year old. So when he was a little bit younger, he looked like he was wearing a little pair of pants. Like, it just looked like, when the way he walked, it looked like he was wearing pants. So I don't know. It's some, how these things start, right? And I said, look, it's like, so we call him Deuce Pants for a while. And then it just turned into like Mr. Pants. And now it's, now it's just pants. And now he responds, right? Like I say pants, and his ears go up, right? So I don't know. It's stupid.
It's so cute. Because we call our cats furry pants too. It's like, oh, look at your furry pants.
Okay, so yes, you are tuning into Takeover Tuesday. This is a horror podcast. Just in case anybody's wondering, I should slide right into like cat people or something right there. Yes. But we still have one question left. So the rapid fire question number 5. Have your say. This is a have your say question. Recently, you're like, oh my God, please don't. Okay, so recently, Disney announced that the new incarnation of Blade, as part of the MCU, will be structured as a streaming show, or might be structured as a streaming show instead of a feature film. Care to comment?
Sure. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, because the Blade films were they were kind of an event, right? Is Mahershala Ali still going to be Blade? Is that correct? I thought I saw that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I love him. So I'll watch him in anything. Yeah. I'll watch him in anything. So sure. I don't know. But then, I mean, then what? It's going to be on Disney Plus, and then people who don't have Disney Plus won't be able to see it. And so there's that.
Yeah.
Doesn't
everyone have Disney Plus now? Almost.
I don't know, I guess.
I was like, I'm never going to get that. And now I have
it.
So you can only watch this half an hour show on this one platform. $10 a month. I'm never buying that ordered. never canceled. Anyway. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. We appreciate that answer for sure. The correct answer was no. But thanks for being such a good sport. That's the end of the rapid fire question. Of course, rapid fire is brought to us by Wellington Brewery's Helles Lager. And of course, if you're looking to support a local brewery, they are the oldest Canadian microbrewery, and they're based out of Guelph, Ontario, which is where we broadcast from. And of course, you can pick up some tins at your local LCBO or wherever you purchase your adult beverages. If you see the Wellington boot in a bar, order one of those. Helles Lager, Helles, yeah, that's our tagline, and we'll have those on the road when we hit up all the conventions this summer. They keep us kind of powered on the road. They've been keeping us powered through the pandemic at home. But of course, drinking in conventions is better than drinking by yourself at home. So, okay, Carolyn, we're just going to take a quick commercial break. We gotta senselessly promote our own stuff. But we'll be right back in the next 30 seconds, and we'll get into talking about some representation in film, and something I know that is near and dear to your heart. You're able to stick around?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, cool. We'll be right back.
Black Fawn Distro. Movies, merchandise, available now at blackfawndistribution.com.
Okay, and we're back with Carolyn Morissette from Blood in the Snow Film Festival, as well as Fantasia Film Festival, as well as View from the Dark, as well as all the other stuff you have coming on. But thanks everyone for sticking around. I really do appreciate the support in the audience tonight, of course. And quick shout out to our the people that we've worked with to help us with the music for tonight's episode. Of course, our intro track was written and produced by Derek Prince Cox, who also has his own podcast called The Walk Show. Highly recommend that you check it out if you love independent music. And as well, our new segment beats were provided by Ben Living, and that music that you just heard in the commercial there was produced by Fox Grinder. So thanks everyone for contributing music to the show. We do appreciate it. Ups that production value, right? And gives everyone something cool to listen to. That's not my, or it's a bit more interesting to listen to, I guess, than my voice. So Carolyn, thanks for sticking around. Really appreciate you making the time. I know we're kind of going into overtime now, which is great. But you are a festival film programmer for anyone just tuning in. You're also a reviewer, you're a podcaster, you're a lecturer. You've got all those bases covered, but I know one of the subjects that's near and dear to your heart is just representation in film, and in using that. I remember you told me before we went off on the air, you said, they're buzzy words, but ultimately it comes down to like just different representation than we've had before in film. So whether that be women in film, LGBTQ representation in film, BIPOC representation in film, obviously that you're passionate about that, but just talk to, I don't know how to, can I just throw that to you? And what's the most important thing about that? I guess maybe even just from past and present, or how do you see it changing, or where do you see it going?
Well, it's funny you say it, because I'm wearing this t-shirt. I'm gonna see if I can stand up, the old lady. So this is you remember Sesame Street? There was a little girl, that little cartoon, and her mother sent her to the store, and she's like, I want you to get a stick of butter, a carton of milk, a container of milk, and a loaf of bread. And I remember that cartoon because I'm like, oh my God, it's a little black girl. And she's, it's like this cartoon, like a representation of me. Right. And I always remembered that. And actually, my boyfriend got this for me for Christmas because it's one of my favorite segments from Sesame Street. So when you think about that, when you think about what kids are seeing, and if they don't see themselves, that they might not aspire or feel like they have a space. So I think it's really important that, we're always talking about younger people and what have you, but you have to kind of represent, have children seeing themselves. Otherwise, they end up like me, who think I don't belong here, you know? So like when I see this, it makes me think of, oh yeah, I was really excited when I was a kid because I saw this little Black girl. So I think it's important for a lot of kids of color to see themselves because it gives you confidence, right? It makes you think that you have a place in the world. So in terms of film, like you want to see stories, like I would love to see a great romance, like an Asian romance, you know, or like Indigenous romance, or just to see that, yes, people go through these things too from other cultures and other walks of life. Like, I think that's really important. So obviously I would be passionate about it because, you know, I was always a misfit. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's just really important to see these stories. Like, for instance, oh my gosh, I forget her name, but she's a Black writer. I think she directed this film as well, The Photograph. So it stars Issa Rae and Lakeith Stansfield, and it's a romance. And you know, Issa Rae plays a character who's a curator at a museum, and her love interest is Lakeith, and he's a journalist, and he has to write a story. And it's just like, yes, we can be in these realms. We can be a curator for a museum. We can be a journalist. We can just to see yourself in, because otherwise you don't think, like, I never thought I could be a writer. I was humiliated by a professor in university. Like, he was just like, your writing is nonsensical. And then for like, I don't know, about 5 years, I stopped writing because I thought he was the authority, right? Because he's a professor, and he just really crushed me for a while. So I think it's really important to see these things and like to lift people up, you know? And I mean, that's across the board for everyone, but like specifically for people of color too, because you don't get that encouragement, or you get these assumptions that, oh, you're too dumb, or, you know. So I don't know, I'm rambling.
No. I mean, I think just in a general sense, like I feel like there's this weird thing where either people like don't want to give something any credit, or give it, you know, almost too much credit, where it's like, oh, it's perfect, or this is no, it's totally shitty. And it's like, depending on who's hearing that, has a false sense of the value of their work, right? Whether you know, it's better than they've been told, or it's not as good as they've been told, and that somehow influences sort of how they see their own sense of worth, or their own, at least the project's worth. But I always find like, it's like, look, it's pretty good, but here's some constructive criticism, like you were saying, like a professor just saying like, no, it's gone. I mean, how many times has that happened? Not even in an academic setting, but in a home setting, friends, family, parents, like not really understanding. Like you said, you know, you're a misfit. I think I was too. I mean, I think a lot of the people that are drawn into the horror genre are like the island of misfit toys, right? But I wonder if that's. I always think to myself that that's kind of how we've sort of approached things. Is just to say, yeah, this is really, these things are good. These things need some work, and here's why. And you know, again, like you were saying, like just like not that we're like, you know, whatever, but we watch screeners and stuff just the same as you, and for different reasons. But you know, just kind of making sure that the feedback's constructive, because you don't want to. I don't want to say crush someone's dreams, because that, I don't, you know what I mean? Like it like that insinuates that like you are the kingmaker, right? But I'm not. But just be wary of how much work goes into something, and how scary it is, because it is.
Yeah. Oh, it is. It's putting yourself out there. And yeah, I just, again, going back to like submitting to film festivals and like talking and like go to a film festival, or, you know, meet people and network and get that feedback. And like, yeah, you know, and I think also I had gone to get together. I can't remember what year it was a couple of years ago, maybe, actually more, because it was in the before times when we could actually like meet without fear. And I met a couple of young filmmakers, and they were Black, and they're like, oh yeah, you know, I have a horror short film. I don't know what to do with it. I'm like, send it to me, please. Like, you know, like just, yeah, it's encouraged. And like, and be honest, but like I think people across the board need constructive criticism. But again, I think people of color need the encouragement to say, you have a place here, you have a place at the table. And especially when it comes to film, because a lot of the times, I think a lot of people in the higher positions are still thinking about, well, is it going to make money? And look at Bollywood. It's a $1 billion industry, and they've got all types of genre. And I know it's specific to that country, but it's so popular. Like there's a lot of people out there who love Bollywood, and it makes money. So, just give people the chance to make a film that may not be cookie cutter. Just do it. I mean, I don't know. I was listening because I'm writing about Hereditary. So I was listening to Ari Aster and how he was talking about, it's an independent film, but he did have that chance. But he also had issues. He was spinning it as a family drama. He wasn't spinning it as horror per se. Right. He says that it was a family drama that, I think it was the word, he curdles into a nightmare. So, they're compartmentalizing, okay, what's a family drama and it might get intense. So, that's how he was spinning it. So even this guy is kind of tentative about horror, and like he's a white dude. So you can imagine if like this, someone says, well, I have a horror film, it takes place, in a black family or whatever. I mean, now probably not so much because Jordan Peele opened like a whole, the door for people, but it's still dicey, if you're from like a culture that doesn't necessarily represent in horror, it might be difficult. So I don't know. Yeah.
Do you think that the expectations are too high as well? Like, do you think like for BIPOC filmmakers, like I can just for any filmmaker, it's like, you always use the analogy, like it's like a baby, right? And it's like you release it into the world and people will say whatever they feel about it, and it's not all going to be nice. But do you feel like it's like maybe like an unfair level of expectations for BIPOC filmmakers now, or do you think that's changing? Or because I know it was in the past, I feel from everything that I've read and being told, like it was different in the past, right? And probably still is challenging.
Yeah, like a perfect example is the new Candyman, right? So, Oh my God, the camps, the people that were for it, the people that were against it. And I think, oh my God, why am I blanking on the director's name? Anyways,
Nia DaCosta, right?
Thank you, Nia DaCosta. Can't believe I blanked on her name. I told you it's not happening here. But Nia DaCosta didn't have a chance to just like make I think was this her second feature film? She didn't have a chance to just like make a film. Like it had all this weight on it, and there's all this expectation because A, it's Candyman, and B, it's a Black woman taking on a Black narrative. So there's like all this pressure. And so, I mean, I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it too.
It wasn't perfect, but also it was an enjoyable horror film, and she infused some modern takes within it. So, but I think that they wanted this perfect film from her, and it's like you got to give her some wiggle room, like
and I think because Jordan Peele produced it, and I think like the thing with Jordan Peele is that like Get Out was such a massive hit when it came out, and he won the Oscar. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you can't really top, I think, he won for screenwriting, right? So he won Best Original Screenplay. And I can't remember the nominees that year, but I was just like, right on. I mean, that's because it was a cool idea. And that's awesome. And then I sort of thought, I was like, that's a hard movie to follow up though. Because that's the pinnacle, right? It's like, you've got box office hit, it's a different idea, and you win the top prize. I mean, how do you follow that up? And also, how do other filmmakers really follow that up? Because a part of me feels like, and I think that's true in film, just in general, especially with sequels, and especially like we were talking about this, like I said, on the Hot Stove episode we did on Scream. It's like like when is something considered an actual sequel and when is it its own thing? And like you said, having the room to wiggle and let something organic breathe seems to be harder and harder to do with all this cash that's at, I use quotation marks at risk. And I'm wondering, I've been watching a lot of stuff from the 70s, just like, production, like little videos on when they made movies in the 70s, and just a variety of things, and how like the 70s was like the Wild West. Like nobody really knew what they were doing. They were just trying shit out and like throwing everything at the wall. And they made some of the best movies of all time because there was no plan. There was no real limitations. And like, I'm not saying that there shouldn't have been limitations. I think there's definitely examples of that there should have been, but some of those productions went right off the rails, but the actual, the final product was something that we still watch and refer to today. I'm wondering if that needs to happen again, and specifically with BIPOC directors and filmmakers, that I think a lot of white people got those opportunities to, like you said, they just made a film, sucked. They made another film, sucked. And they tried out all the things and learned along the way, as opposed to being like, okay, my first film has to be perfect. And all the other films I make after that have to be perfect too. It's crazy.
Like I kind of hope that Jordan Peele makes a stinker, why not? Like, I mean, but he has the luxury of it because he, as you said, he reached the pinnacle right out the gate. But yeah, I just think, and I think it's also because I don't want to, like, I don't know, I'm going to say it. I think it's because she's a woman director as well, and put a lot of pressure on people. And it's not in that, women directors still struggling. They're still struggling for representation, and also a Black woman director. So there's so much pressure to create this product that is going to uplift the community. And I totally get that. Because you don't want someone to be making a film. Like, there's one film I will not mention, but they were sending people links. They were just sending press links. And they wrote this whole thing up about the film and the reasoning behind the film. And they were sending people, and it's like, I said to my friend, I actually want to just send it back to them. I hated that film. I hated it. But, it's, I don't know. I just think that, this was, I believe it was 2 male directors, I think, or male, writer and director. But it was a terrible film. And it did not uplift the community, the Black community, let's just say. And I believe the star of the film, they were kind of upset that it didn't do well. And this star is fantastic. So that film is like an example of that really didn't do anything for the community, because there's a lot of narratives within Black stories that really, they've been done to death, like enslavement, criminal crime. You're coming up from this crime background. Like, we need new, fresh stories. And I really think that Nia DaCosta did try to capture something new. She talked about gentrification, which is a real problem. It's a real problem for a lot of communities. People are being, priced out of the neighborhoods they've lived in for 40 years. So I think that was a real situation that she tried to convey within this classic film. I don't know. We need to see different stories. We need to see things that aren't like typical and stereotypical. So, and that's why I brought up that, it's not genre per se, but The Photograph, it's a love story, I don't know. We just need to see more like realistic stories. I think just like people living their lives kind of stories. And maybe there's a horror element. Maybe there's a sci-fi element.
I think no, but because the one example I think that always comes up is operating within genre as well, but is like action movies, right? And people say, well, like, look at all these action movies, and they're all directed by men, and to a certain extent that makes sense, because men like action movies. Like if you look at any sort of demographic of who's coming out of the movie theater, who's buying tickets, like it's skewed towards men, but there's still a component of a female audience there. And, you know, Catherine Bigelow, who has directed, you know, Academy Award winner, has directed numerous films, including Point Break, which is like the most like macho action movie maybe ever made. Like it's up there. Like, I don't know if there's too many movies that surpass that flick for what it was. And she made that in, like, when did that movie come out? Someone comment if you're listening. I think it was 92. I think.
91. I think I just wrote about it. I think it's 91. Yeah.
Which is like 30 years ago. And I'm always surprised by the whole, you know, popcorn MCU big block. But I mean, I've just kind of been like, why don't you get Catherine Bigelow to direct one of these movies? But I don't think she wants to. Like, I have no idea. Just I'm speculating. But I think she's just like, no. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, but I just I never understood, like, well, here's some. I mean, one person that's getting an opportunity like that is Deborah Chow, and she's directing the Obi-Wan series for Disney. Oh, right. Not to you know, whatever, but I remember when she directed a couple of the episodes of, I can't remember if it was Mandalorian season 1 or season 2, but I was like, those are the best episodes. They're the best. They're action focused. Not that was a defining thing, but the action was filmed like competently, and it was exciting and engaging and stuff like that. And she had relatively done like a few things before, but I don't think that much. And now she's got the opportunity to shoot her own series. I think she's shooting all 6 episodes of this sort of like mini series type thing, which is exciting because it's like, just give her the reins, like just let her run wild. And I think you'd be surprised. And I think that goes for any director, I don't think it needs to be limited to any, but again, I think like we were discussing, like, don't be afraid to make something less than a masterpiece, I think. Mm-hmm. And also, anybody else in those kind of positions of studio looking at like money making, you know, don't look at this as like, I got to make the next $1 billion movie. Like, just be happy with, like, it's funny. Like I like a couple things, sorry, I'm going on a tangent here too, but it's okay. But it's, and we're going way over time, but hey, we're going to keep it going as long as people are listening. But, you know, for my, gone are the days where they would open up a movie. Like, I read an article recently and it was like, gone are the days when you open up a movie in like 20 theaters or 100 theaters. And then it got some buzz and people went to see it. You did some box office and then you do expand to like 500 theaters, 1,500, whatever. Now everything opens in 4,000 theaters. And if it does well that weekend, amazing. And if it does shitty, it disappears and you never see it again. And I'm wondering, I know that for Get Out, you know, they had got really good buzz about it. It had done well. And then I think Blumhouse signed off on like a $50 million like marketing package to, you know, pump the film. And I'm wondering if that's what films need just in general. Like, we're talking about horror films, thrillers, whatever, but just like letting something breathe on a release and get it that kind of word of mouth. As opposed to everything's like all reviews all at once, 1 week at the box office, and then it's gone. And streaming is a little bit, unfortunately, like that. But I don't know. Would you care to add on to that, or am I just rambling?
It's funny because now, like, I'm taking a hiatus from viewing films just because I've got a lot going on this year with the 2 film festivals, and I'm starting to, I was talking to Mitch about this, actually, Mitch from Fantasia. I was just like, I'm starting to feel like I don't want to comment on films because it's so reliant, like the system, the movie system it's reliant on reviews and it's not reliant on reviews. Like, Rotten Tomatoes still has a standing, but then, you know, like, for instance, that film After Yang is a very small independent film and it was great, but not a lot of people are talking about it, right? And I think a lot of really great films suffer from that because they don't have that, you know, the studio pumping it full of PR and you know, publicity and what have you. So I don't know. And I think in a way I feel obligated to write about these smaller films so that they do get notice and they do get like a rating on Rotten Tomatoes. But I don't know. I'm just getting, I don't know what it is, like, because I think, again, social media has become a PR thing in itself now. So, and if you I guess use your money right and buy ads or whatever, and it kind of pops up in algorithms and whatever, however that works.
Yeah, nobody knows. Nobody knows how that works.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I just want to take a step back from criticism, but also I know that there are films that would benefit from it,
right?
From getting a write-up. So yeah, I don't know. Now I'm going off on a tangent. I'm having this thought where I'm like, because I just see, like, before I was never on PR lists, and I had to beg to get a screener for a film, and now that's all I get. It's like,
yeah,
this film, that film. I'm getting things like, oh, you want to review this book? And I'm like, no, I don't have time to read a book. So
it's like all those late night talk show hosts were like, the new book, it's excellent. I'm like, when are those guys reading that?
Yeah, exactly. Right. They're going to have their assistant read it and give them the
they got kids and families and all kinds of other endeavors. I just read this 500-page book, but well, maybe this is we actually didn't get to this question. I left this question until now because I just thought it was a good segue. But of course, from our good friends, the Spinsters of Horror, what are your top 3 horror movies written or directed, or both, by women? And do you have, not to put you on the spot, while you're thinking, I should just say that some of your favorite movies that you told us about and we posted on our Instagram throughout the day were, of course, Coffee and Starry Eyes and Earwig, which I didn't know anything about, but you said is one of your favorite movies. And also you did mention that The Outsider by Stephen King was one of your favorite books that you've read recently. So yeah, I don't know if that plays into this, to be honest, but yeah.
Well, actually, Earwig was directed by a woman, and I cannot pronounce her name. Let me just look it up because I can't pronounce her name. I believe she's Belgian, and that movie, it lingers with you. It's very strange. It takes place post-war, like I guess in the 50s, and it starts with a man looking after a little girl, and she has this weird device in her mouth, and she has to have like frozen dentures. And so he has to replace them. And I guess it's made from her saliva. It's very strange. So he has to replace them daily. And they're in this big rambling house. And then he gets this phone call and they say, well, it's time to move her. And it's this whole really weird, quiet film. Then he goes out and then something kind of odd happens and it just snowballs after that. It's very strange. Let me look up her name because I'm going to butcher it, but.
And that was based on a book, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, it was based on a book. I really want to read that book too. Let me see. So her name is Lucille Hadziholovic, I believe. And she also did a film called, what is it now? Let me look up the other film that she did, which was completely, it was so strange. And I fell in love with it. It's called The Evolution. I think that played Tiff as well. And that film was she just has such a unique vision.
Right.
When you see a film of hers, I think it's never the same thing. It's just so unique. So I would say she's written and directed a film that I really love was Earwig. Oh my gosh.
So there's one. You got 2.
There's one. Oh my God. And I'm completely blanking. And I have all these women directors in my Audrey Cummings. Audrey. I love her. She Never Died. I love that movie. It's so clever. It's so cleverly written. It was written by the guy that did the first film. He never died, so he wrote it, and then Audrey directed it. Love that movie. Let's see who else. I don't know. It's gonna come to me. I'm gonna name 10 tomorrow when we're not on air. But yeah, I would. Yeah.
Well, you already mentioned you did already mention Nia DaCosta as well, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say Nia DaCosta. I think she's very. And Mariama Diallo, who did Master. That movie. I'm telling you, you've got to watch it. It's so good. Oh my God. like just the tone, the subtleties. It's so brilliant. Yeah, it's a really great film. She's really, really good. And she also did a film called Hairwolf, which I think is on Canopy. It is a short film and it's really funny. It's great. Yeah.
Awesome. Anything you wanted to add on this topic at all? I don't want to jump off of it too quickly but I mean, it's a dense topic, right? It's got a lot of,
yeah.
I mean, my thing, actually, you know what, this came up on another podcast, so I should ask you, what about, so talking about representation in film, which I think we, as film fans, film buffs, you know, whomever, if you're involved in the industry, I think you understand the importance of it on at least the face value of the importance of it, of, you know, having those extra voices at the table, right? And more input gives you a better team, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, even just from a film festival point of view, I mean, I think that's probably true in the programming circles as well, where it's like, you have maybe conflicting views. I don't want to say you're going to butt heads, but, you know, there's not everyone's going to like everything. It'd be a boring world if it was. But I think even just for representation in film, like, what about villains in film? Because I find that, like, you mentioned Candyman earlier, and I even remember I had just watched before I saw the new one. I rewatched the original, and I was like, how many villains are there really in film? Like BIPOC villains in film? It doesn't seem like there haven't been a lot in the past. Like, I think, you know, I always think of, you know, Wesley Snipes and Demolition Man, James Earl Jones. I guess you could say James Earl Jones as Darth Vader, or, you know, or the villain in Conan. And obviously it was probably because of limited opportunities. But now I'm wondering if should that be a focus too? Should we have like more women villains, black villains? Because I always feel that can contribute something different to films, right? And I'm wondering if I don't know if it's a focus or not. I can't tell. I can't tell, to be honest.
Well, I think because like there's like stereotypes of like the black criminal, right? So there's like a villain in that way that's not nuanced, is not three-dimensional. There's a Canadian film called Akila's Escape, and it's by Charles Officer, and it's written by Charles Officer and Wendy Motion. She's a spoken word artist. And this film is, first of all, it's gorgeous. It played TIFF, I think, last year, the year before. And it's about this man who he like works for a marijuana, like an illegal marijuana grow up. And now that everything's being legalized, he wants to get out of the business. And he gets kind of embroiled in this young guy who tries to rob him. And he ends up kind of taking pity on this kid and trying to help him out. And it's such a nuanced film where the main character is, quote unquote, a villain, but he's not a bad person. And you find out his backstory and why he's doing this work. And it's just it's such a gorgeous film, three-dimensional characters. You see a villain who has a background, and I don't even know if you would call him a villain. He's just a person that had his life kind of veered off in this direction. And I think that's a perfect example of a black character who is not, quote unquote, like a good citizen, because he's doing something that's illegal, but also he's a good person. So I absolutely think that, you know, there should be nuanced characters when it comes to maybe not like kind of veering off of the, you know, side of morality that everybody normally takes. I think it's very important. There's a show called, is it The Wheel of Time? Is that one? The one on Amazon? And it's like the medieval. So there's, I started watching, I think I watched like 3 episodes, and there's a villain, and he is, I think he's like a king or something. And he's it's a black actor, and he's just really mean and awful. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool, you know, like to see this character who's a king and he has his power and he's just really mean and awful. And it's just kind of cool to see, you know, I don't know. It's just cool. And he's like, I remember there's a scene, he's dressed in this beautiful white outfit, like it's like a military outfit, and it's like a tunic and white pants, and like he's like, I don't know if he's eating somebody's heart or something, but I'm like, zoinks, you know, like, it's so cool to see. I'm like, don't get it on that outfit. But anyway, that's just me. But yeah, I just thought it was kind of cool that, you know, you have villains from that look like, you know, all kinds of people. So yeah, but it has to be done right. It has to be written with nuance and dimension. So
yeah, and I always feel like just villains in general, like the greater the villain, the better the hero, right? And
yeah.
I think it was when Kelly and Jess were on. I can't remember, but you know, on the show, I was saying, you know, there's obviously like the greater the more iconic villains also have iconic heroes attached to them. So whether it's, you know, Michael Myers and you know, Laurie Strode, or Hannibal Lecter and Clarice Starling, like it's like you have these iconic, but you always remember the hero. It's not like you only remember the villain from these films. You ultimately remember the hero as well. And I feel like just in general, I feel like that's something that's missing from films, like just all over the place, where it's like, I don't know if I care about this main character because I don't know if they're overcoming anything. The villain is weak. So it's like, of course they're going to beat this villain. Like nobody cares about this villain. And
yeah,
I don't know if that's just something that's just like an issue throughout film, but I always find like, yeah, either the villain that has, like you said, some three-dimensional, like, so they're not necessarily pure evil. They're a complex sort of mix between good and bad, and maybe more bad than good. And also, I always found the most interesting heroes or protagonists in a film are the ones that are flawed heroes, right? So like, this is a guy that's trying to do a good job, but he's got, you know, he's got a drinking problem, or he's you know, he's kind of a horrible person, but or he neglects his kids or whatever, but he's trying to kind of fight this overall. Anyway, that's just, and I just don't know if I hope that comes back, because I think, like I said before, like when I was watching these kind of things from the 70s, it was like a lot of that stuff, like The Godfather and Dog Day Afternoon, and like all these movies that were like, here are interesting characters that you've never really seen before, and they're all flawed. But you're still rooting for them in a way that, like, it's that you wouldn't think that you would going in, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you do check out Akila's Escape, like that's exactly, you're rooting for this guy. He's like an anti-hero, right? And you're like, oh my God, I hope he gets out. Even like the He Never Died, She Never Died films, you know, they're like fallen. Oh, maybe I won't spoil it in case people haven't seen it, but these are people that are living on the fringe of society for a particular reason. And they're not exactly good, but they kind of get rid of the bad people, let's just say, in a certain way. So,
right.
You know, like, and like they're kind of like, you know, on a level where they're not criminals, but they're not exactly the best people either. So yeah, I really enjoy that. I think, yeah,
we'll see what we'll have to see what the future holds. I hope I just wanted to look up I just wanted to mention somebody that I think, just because we're on this topic, and oh my goodness, I can't remember his name. I'm drawing a blank. You gave that to me, by the way. Oh my goodness. Anyway, he's gonna, apparently the rumor is that he's going to be Jonathan Majors. Sorry.
Yes.
So he starred in Last Black Man in San Francisco. Fantastic, really interesting film. But apparently he's going to be the new big bad in the MCU, which is a guy called Kang the Conqueror. And the idea is that he's different in different dimensions. So in some dimensions, he's like a very, very nice person. In other dimensions, he's like a horrible dictator, you know, just kill everyone. So the idea is that when he shows up, he'll be, and I love that guy. I also watched
love him.
What was the show on
Lovecraft Country?
Yes, Lovecraft Country. Yeah. I had issues with the show. I thought it was a bit all over the place. But he's just such a versatile actor that I think it'll be interesting to see what he does with the role, because and it's a big, meaty, juicy part. And I think that's sometimes, like you were saying, the stereotypes that come in that say, okay, well, you're going to play this drug lord, let's say, because you're a black actor. It's like, well, you can only play that so many ways, and there's so many examples of it being played in the past. It doesn't really give you much opportunity to expand as an actor, I'm assuming, on a role like that, right?
Yeah. No,
So-
it's true. Like you need some new. Also, I looked him up too. Yahya Abdul Mateen. I love him. He was in
Yes.
Candyman. I don't know if I think he played kind of just looking here. I think he played kind of a not so great character. Was it in the Get Down? Can't remember.
He was in Watchmen, so he played the new incarnation of.
I know
Dr.
he was
Manhattan.
in Watchmen.
Yeah, yeah. My girlfriend loves that guy too.
Yeah, he's great. I think was he in Insecure? I feel like he was on that show. Maybe not. No, maybe not. I can't remember. But anyway, I love him, and I would love to see him play a villain. He has the makings of a great villain.
Yeah.
So-
Well, he was Black Manta in the Aquaman movie, but he wasn't really like villainous, kind of like
Mm.
it's, I don't know. I don't want to see some roles that are like, just, this is the most horrible person in the world. You know what I mean? Like have at it and just like turn it into something, nobody. And the reason I say that is because, Anthony Hopkins, I don't know why coming back to Anthony Hopkins, but still, like, Hannibal Lecter, one of the most iconic villains, scary villains in a horror film, basically, won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor in that role. But I don't think anyone gave him that role and said, yeah, but just play him like don't play him that evil, like don't make sure that you're like, that he's still likable. Like there's like, when you first meet him in that film, it's like when Clarice goes to meet him for the first time and the camera kind of pulls around the corner where you're like, you don't really know who's in that room. And he's, it's like, you don't care if there's glass there or not. You don't want to even be near that guy because he's so creepy. And, so I can't, like, that's what I'd like to see personally, is just like, here's a nice big fat juicy role, like just, bite into it and just like rock and roll and see what happens.
You know who else is a really good villain? The woman in Handmaid's Tale, and she was in Hereditary and The Leftovers. What was her name? She plays Joanne in Hereditary. Again, very no worky.
Oh, now I'm drawing a blank. Oh, see what you've done to me?
Sorry.
It's a good thing I have these notes.
Let me look her up.
Yeah,
can't spell now. But she's great too. She's a super nice woman, but she plays the best villain, like the best villain ever. Like Handmaid's Tale, I had to stop watching it after a while because she was just so horrible. I had to stop watching. I'm like, she's just the meanest. And The Leftovers, she was incredible in The Leftovers. And that show, underrated, was so good.
Awesome. Well, we got a quick question or a quick comment here. Sorry. Just from our friend Tracy. Blade Runner is a great film that you really feel for the villains. Not really a horror film, but the characters are nice and complex. And not knowing, that's a great call. Just not knowing, even if they're human or not, which I think is kind of interesting, right? So, but. Well, I think, look, we're creeping up on the 2-hour mark. I think I got to let you go.
God,
I feel like now listen, I burn the first 15 minutes with all my bullshit at the start. So, but fried chicken sandwiches and whatever, fake neuralizers. Anyway, listen, just before we go, just wondering if you can let us know what you have coming up. Obviously, you've got your lecture emanating from the UK on April 12th. But of course, you've got Fantasia Film Festival and Blood in the Snow Film Festival coming up in 2022. Give us the rundown just for our audience, just so they know where to find you and how can they do all this fun stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm also doing something on Monday for the Canadian Academy. They're having it's called the Members Lounge. And I'm moderating a talk on video editing, special effects, and sound design. So that'll be really interesting. It's got 3 people from the industry just talking about that editing and that sort of thing for horror films. So that should be really interesting. I believe it's at noon. So if you go to the Canadian Academy and click on the members lounge, I believe it's like $10 or something. I'm not actually, don't quote me on that, but it, just see, because I think there might be still availability for that. Fantasia, let me just look at the deadlines. So I believe there's a deadline, April the 14th. That's a late deadline for submissions. Bits, like, you've got plenty of time. So got plenty of time for Bits, because it's not happening until November, right? So
you better hope that Kirk and Kelly aren't listening right now.
Yeah, I know.
What are you saying? Get those films in. No, I'm just kidding. So I know what you mean. I know. Don't drag your feet, but
don't drag your feet, but I mean,
don't have a heart attack. Yeah.
If you really want to get the fire lit under you, you should be getting ready for Fantasia, because that's the late deadline. It's April the 14th, and it so Fantasia is July 14th to August the 3rd, and Bits is November 21st to the 26th. So just stay tuned for announcements from Bits and Fantasia, and I think and the lecture, and I think that's it. Yeah, and then maybe I'll take a nap after everything. I'm tired.
Well, I mean, you might have to take a nap in the next 5 minutes as well, because this show, we've gone way over time. But yes. Carolyn, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the program. See, what did I tell you, everyone listening? Like she's absolutely the opposite of boring. And thank you for just fitting us into your busy schedule. You've got a lot of stuff going on, and I was actually pretty amazed. I was like, I know you're busy all the time, but again, just a rundown of what you're doing. You're the director of Canadian programming at Fantasia Film Festival. You're also part of the film programming team at Blood in the Snow, as well as the festival's coordinator for the Bits Horror Development Lab, which we also talked about. Both of those film festivals, as well as the submission process for the Horror Development Lab through Blood in the Snow, are all on Film Freeway. So make sure you check out filmfreeway.com if you're looking to submit a film. I recommend sending it into both of those festivals. If you get into one or both, amazing. It's definitely a benefit for a film, and it will definitely raise its profile. Also, you're kind of still writing for reviews. You're still a Rotten Tomatoes approved critic. You're taking a little bit of a break, but you're also contributing to a podcast. And like I said before, and you just mentioned, you also are a lecturer as well on a wide array of topics. But please go to Carolyn's Instagram. You can check it out at Chemo25. So at CEMO25. She has a link tree there, which has all the links to everything you could possibly want, I think. Mm-hmm. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And lots of pictures of cats.
Lots of pictures of cats. And of course, make sure you follow Black Fawn Distro as well. You can find us online at Black Fawn Distro. And thanks again for tuning in for Takeover Tuesday. We do appreciate everyone's support. And of course, Carolyn Morissette, please, thank you again for coming on the program. I hope to have you back. Like I said, we're doing these hot stove panels, so I might give you a call, and we might have to try and figure something out, and see if we can fit you on into a topic that you might dig. How about that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, you know what? I totally forgot. How could I forget this? I have a step cat, my boyfriend's cat. Her name's Charlotte, and we call her Sheila Binks. So, sorry. I forgot. Gotta end it on that.
Oh, Sheila Binks.
Yeah. Or Char.
Yeah, it's like, well, I'm glad you got that in, right? Because you can't that cat will probably go, it'll go eat up your shoelaces or something.
Well, she hates me anyway, but whatever.
Awesome. Well, on that note, thanks again for joining us, and of course, best of luck with everything that you have coming up. And again, to our audience, thanks again for tuning in. Of course, you're listening to Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday, and hey, we'll be back in a couple of weeks with another guest, and we've got some of them already booked, and I think you're going to be pretty pumped. So make sure you follow us on Instagram at Black Fawn Distro to see who is coming up next. That's it for me. Carolyn, anything to add?
No, but thank you so much for having me on. I love you guys. You guys are the best.
Well, on that note, I'm out of here. I'm not going to ruin anything else. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
And that does it for another episode of Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please remember to like, follow, share, and subscribe, and help us spread the word about the program and our incredible guests. If you're interested in grabbing some more information about Black Fawn Distribution or want to check out our film titles and merchandise, you can find us online at blackfawndistribution.com. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Wellington Brewery's Hellas Lager, Deadly Grounds Coffee, Twisted Teas, and of course, Black Fawn Distribution. Just a reminder, you can always catch Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday live on Facebook, YouTube, and our other social media platforms. Or pick up one of our retransmissions on any of the major streaming platforms. Until next time, I'm your host Benner from Black Fawn Distro, and we'll see you soon.